Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, March 6th, and this is just a summary of the lesson that we did today for 1.3 Analyzing Substances and Properties. Remember, we're still in Chapter 1, and so the topic is making observations. We're looking at physical traits. So last week on Friday, we spent some time looking at three different vials, and this had to do with our anchor phenomenon. I'm trying to figure out what this reddish brown solution is that was coming out of the pipes of the people in Westfield. And so the kids were looking at these three substances and making observations. And so we just took some time to talk about things that they noticed. And specifically, we're reviewing that these are called properties of matter. It's like a characteristic of something. It's something that can be observed about a substance, such as its color, smell, boiling point, melting point. And other examples that we focused on were the grain size. So we talked about things being fine grained or coarse grain, the texture, luster, magneticism, etc. If you were not here on Friday and you're not here on Monday, you and I will need to take just a minute to go over this. This is actually really important for understanding the whole real life problem that we're trying to find with these pipes and what this substance is. But then we kind of talked about what makes observation more useful to a chemist. Specifically, we were looking to see if these substances were the same or if they're different. And here's the thing, a lot of times the kids were saying, well, they're different because they're different color. But when we really talked about it, we could see that they had many different properties. And so that's why it was easy for us to determine that these were different substances. So in this unit, we're going to use the same evidence criterion that we have used in the past, and that is the more detailed observations that we can make, that's going to provide stronger evidence for us. So rather than saying things like it's light colored or it looks like dirt, we're going to use as many properties as we can. We're going to use descriptive language. We're going to try and be very specific instead of imprecise. And we're going to avoid opinions like this looks gross or it smells gross, it smells bad. That's not a very good scientific observation. So then we reminded ourselves of the three claims, and then we continued to make some investigations. We're focusing today on how we can tell that one substance is different from another. The three vials that we looked at earlier, it was easy to tell because they had many different properties that were different. But what if we have four vials that share properties? So the kids had these four samples, and we just called them sample 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they spent some time making detailed scientific observations and gathering evidence to tell whether they thought that the substances were the same or different. They filled out this table in Activity 3, Screen 2. I gave them class time to work on this, and then we came together and we discussed it. I'm going to skip through these. When you come back, I'll have you take a look at these four samples as well, and you and I can kind of talk about those. It won't take very long for us to go over. It's important that you're learning how to make these observations because that's going to come in handy later, okay? So we spent time then talking about the different observations that they made. I corrected students that had general observations, and we all thought together, revised those statements together so that they were more scientific and that they were as detailed as possible so that we could have some good observations. The next thing and the last thing, and I would like you to practice this is something that you can do before you come back to class. Go to activity number 4 in lesson 1.3, and there's a launch button for this model. And you're going to use this sorting tool, and in order to evaluate different observations based on how detailed they are. Okay, so you're going to discuss the evidence. You can discuss it with your partner, or you can just look at it on your own and place each evidence card on the evidence gradient based on how strong you think the evidence is. So you're just going to grab it, click it, drag it, drop it. And you're going to do each one of these cards. There's 6 cards, and individually you can place them anywhere you want to on the evidence gradient. And then we just kind of took some time to talk about what cards they had at the most strong evidence and less strong. So we just talked about that. And then they were able, once you do that, you're going to hand it in and it creates a screenshot, remember? And then you can come back to your curriculum and then continue on with activity number 4. And based on the strongest piece of evidence on your evidence gradient, which claim about the 2 samples do you think is best supported? So you're going to go ahead and click one of those and then tell me why you think that using your strongest piece of evidence. That's something that I think that I would like to have you do before you come back to class. Okay? And I think, oh yes, there is one key concept. Different substances have different properties, which is, it seems really obvious, but it's good to go through these things and so that you can think back and go, okay, we know different substances have different properties because of the different substances that you made observations of in those vials. So then I said, when 2 substances look very different, it's easy to tell from their properties that they're different, but it can be kind of hard to distinguish substances that look really similar. If we don't know what those substances are, then it's hard for us to say that they're different. So we need more information as far as what is causing this reddish brown solution. And we'll address that in the next lesson. All right. Hope to see you tomorrow.